Greetings and salutations across the known world and to everyone watching tonight. Welcome to another Kal-bardr's Corner production. This is a look inside youth activities, episode 1, Youth Combat. I am the Honorable Lady Ísgerðr Bjargeyjardóttir, or Isa Atabala. Hey, let's just make it easy and call me Izzy. And I am your host for the show. Tonight I have Lord Germanicus from the Kingdom of Ísgerðr as my guest. Before we get started, I'm going to go through a couple of things. Many of us that you will see on this series will be officers of the SCA, but this is an opinion show. All opinions expressed are those of the people showing up on camera and are not official opinions of the SCA, any particular kingdom or group. So that's that. A couple of other things. Since this is our very first show, I thought I would go through kind of what it is that we want to cover during this series. I am coming to you live from the northern reaches of the Kingdom of Artemisia, where I serve as the Kingdom Youth Minister there. But I came to the SCA roughly 9 years ago as someone with a lifetime of experiences in youth activities. And so that's been my passion since I joined the SCA. And I had contacted Cal during another one of his shows, and His Excellency said, hey, how about doing a show? And so I ended up doing that. What I want to do with this series is discuss all the aspects of anything involved with youth across the SCA. We're going to meet once a month at the last Monday of every month and have a different guest from across the known world and talk about different aspects of the SCA. And tonight we're going to talk about youth combat. Before I start with that, we do have one issue that I want to touch on because some opinions have been expressed that we are brushing something under the rug, and we definitely don't want to do that. We do have an ongoing legal case going in one of the kingdoms involving youth combat officers. And this is an ongoing investigation. We legally cannot discuss anything to do with that specifically. So we're not going to address that specific issue. What we are going to do during the course of this show, and we make a promise to anybody who's affected and anybody who's out there who has kids and families and just basically anyone in the SCA, we're going to gather ideas, concepts, different methods of keeping our kids safe, of having fun, of letting families have fun, of getting more youth officers and getting more people involved through the youth department. And so with that in mind, I want to welcome my guest this evening. This is Lord Germanicus of the Kingdom of Ísgerðr. He actually is serving as the main guy in youth combat for the whole society. And so he's here to talk to us a lot. I'm so excited for this guest. We're going to pick his brain. So Lord Germanicus, welcome to the stage. And please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Izzy. I really am excited to be here. Where do you start? Well, anybody remember Reader's Digest magazine? This was long before internet. I read an article in 1976 and saw the SCA was an article about it, but no communication, no way to get a hold of them. A year later, I'm homesick with the flu, and on Noon News, Count Sir Simon of Amber, southeast corner of Ísgerðr and Border March, was doing the Noon News interview to promote the SCA in garb. And I'm sitting there going, that's it. It's those guys. He was the only Ben Lee in the phone book. So I looked him up, called him on a chance, and went to meet him. And that's how I got into the SCA in February of 77, armored fighting. And then many, many years later, a little redheaded kid was standing on the side of the War of the Rams, again, Southeast Texas, where the 3-story tall castle is. And the redheaded kid was picking up large sticks and getting with other kids and fighting. And the lady that came over was quite stern, but clear that they can't do that. There's rules for that. Well, that was my son. And he was 6 years old. And Counselor Simon later said, "Hey, do you want to meet the youth combat marshal? She can probably help you and Connor." I went, "Yeah." So he's standing there, I'm standing there, Connor's standing next to us when the same lady, Donald, walked up, and I've never seen a funnier look on a little kid's face in my life. He was terrified. Donald is wonderful. She authorized us. That's how I became a youth combat marshal. And then another wonderful lady and her 3 boys, same problem. There was nothing going on in the kingdom, nothing. So she and I, with the 4 boys, started youth combat in Onstiora many years ago, and it just exploded. What made the difference is when we got the big guys involved, like, could you come over and maybe just show them something, show them a sword strike. Once we got them involved, it took off, and just, again, exponential growth. It was amazing. And here I am.
And here you are. I had much the same start in the SCA. As my first couple of events had lots of stuff, fun stuff for kids to do. And then by the 3rd event, there was nothing for kids to do, because in Artemisia, we have a hard time keeping youth officers sometimes, especially as parents of kids, as they age out of the program.
Right.
Sometimes, people they want to move on and do other things and stuff. So that is kind of one of the things that I'm excited about doing is talking about how do we keep it going? How do we make it happen? How do we make it happen cheaper? You and I were talking yesterday a little bit about some of your ideas about how to do some stuff. So I'm just going to let you talk some youth combat. One thing I do want to say is when we say youth combat, we are talking about youth armored combat as opposed to youth rapier.
Both.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we're going to talk about both.
So
great. A little bit.
I do also want to talk about youth rapier on a different show if it's something that's more involved and you want to talk more armored combat this show. Either way, you let me know.
I'll mention it exists just for those who might see this and maybe they're thinking about the SCA for their child or whatever. Yes, it exists. I am not the expert.
Okay.
There's plenty of people who are really, really good. I'm not him.
Right. And I'm looking forward to doing a show on that as well, because we don't have that at all in Artemisia. I have not even seen that going on. So I'm really excited about that. So please tell us more.
Well, a lot of people, if you're not already in the SCA, you may have a child come home. Oh, my buddy gets to do this and this, and they're all excited and they want you to come see what it's all about. A lot of us may have children in the SCA. That's, again, how I got started. But to the folks in the SCA, chivalry is real. If you're on the outside looking in like, okay, what's the funny people with the clothes, to us, chivalry is real. Honor is real. Respect, absolutely real. You'll see this, I think, in the good dojos for Taekwondo, Judo. Respect, honor. You are polite to your opponent. You respect your adults, your parents. What a concept. But most of all, you learn to respect yourself. And I've seen that, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. But a lot of people will wonder, okay, what does youth combat look like? And we're going to share a screen real quick. If you will go over to, give me a second. There it goes. On YouTube, if you get on YouTube, you can do a search for SCA Youth Combat. And there are so many videos which can give somebody new an idea of just how much fun these little kids are having. They are having a blast. And you have not lived until you've seen a 12-year-old charging a 350-pound knight and just going after him with the foam rubber swords, and so on. Or the little 6-year-old I saw at Pinsick War who was making these sounds as he's fighting, and the parents were so embarrassed. He loved Star Wars. In his mind, he had a lightsaber. It was adorable. But again, if you go look at the videos, if you're not familiar with it, that'll give you a great idea. But let's go back to the main screen. What do youth combat kids get to do? Boy, if you can imagine being in a King Arthur and Excalibur movie and you are in armor, you get to go up against the enemies and dressed well, and you get to fight in tournaments one-on-one. You get to go to practices where you may have a man who is well known as, again, titles, a baron, a duke, a knight, a master of arms. These are grown men who are really, really good, who nowadays they take the time to come over and kneel down and go, hey, would you like me to show you how to hold your shield better or how to hold your sword better? Let me show you some things. And once we got those guys to start doing that in Onstiora, again, it exploded, because that's also when we got the court to say, yeah, okay, we'll give you 10 minutes. We can come up and give some prizes to your tournament winners. We also have youth, not only youth armored, we briefly mentioned this, but youth rapier. That's like Three Musketeers. A lot of kids would rather do that. A lot of kids like to do both. It's completely up to them. Practices and trainings, again, I briefly touched on that, but they are all over the known world, meaning the United States and everywhere else the SCA is. You'll find practices. At times, like Isa mentioned, it can be a challenge to find a youth combat marshal everywhere, but we're working on that, and we've got some solutions for that I'll get to talk about in a second. What else do kids get to do? By the way, in the tournaments, we get creative with those. One of my personal favorite is the rubber ducky tournament. You take a rubber duck, like from Oriental Trading Company. You can buy them by the gross for dirt cheap, put duct tape on it, stick it on top of their helmet, and wounds count. So you may lose an arm or a leg, but you're not dead until you get your duck knocked off. And every single time we have done that, regardless, the grown men come over and they're sitting there like looking at kids in a candy store outside the window. And it's not long before some knight or brass hat duke will come over and go, can we try that? Can we have ducks? Every time. And the kids are sitting there going, you want me to show you how to fight? Which is hilarious. We also, the kids get to fight in small battles, which, man, 10, 15, that's called a melee, all right? And what's fun is we're very cautious about this. There's 3 different age groups in youth combat. The little guys, the ones that are like up to 14 years old, middle group, and then the older guys, 14 to 17, I think it is. But anyway, those are the ones, the big kids and so on. But in the melees and battles, if there's enough kids and the marshals are there and safety is explained, we point out who's who. And we have mixed age bracket battles. You can see some of those on YouTube. And again, it's all ages, all mixed, and they have an absolute blast, you know, trying to be the general. Okay, it's your turn to be the general, or charging through the line. They get bragging rights. You get to take that to school on Monday morning. You're going to find a lot of friends that want to come with you and come see this. At the bigger SCA events, like what we call the war reenactments, Gulf Wars, Penzic War, there's an awful lot of activity all day, every day. There's classes, tournaments, big battles. So the kids get to do that. They can test their prowess in battle on a bridge. They can fight in an open field. We've done that plenty of times. That we've had woods battles where they're charging up and down ravines and woods, just like in the movies. We've had town battles with cardboard boxes and tables to lay out a town. And they even get to storm castles, which is their all-time favorite. There's several larger wooden castles at the Gulf War site, the Penzic War site. The granddaddy of them all is in Bordermarsh, the 3-story tall stone castle. It is a monster. And the kids do get their turn to fight all up and down that thing on the parapets. They have an absolute blast. Photo opportunity, parents. Trust me on that one. They do not, at youth combat, you don't actually fight against adults ever, because adults, it's a whole different ballgame. It's far more serious. But the adults get to train them. And again, they do a lot of that nowadays. The weapons that the kids fight with, a lot of you may have seen the LARP groups and so on. It's foam rubber, like pool noodles, with a not PVC, but the plastic core, or a really, really thin rattan core. If you've ever tried to kill one of those giant flying roaches down in the swamps where I'm from in Cajun country with a pool noodle, you're going to be there a while. You can't hurt anything with. So the kids are quite safe with that. They laugh, they giggle, whatever. But that's what we use for the weapons. It's safe. You're teaching skill rather than trying to beat somebody in the ground like a tent stake. Again, like Izza said, we are absolutely adamant about safety and everybody having fun. Key word. We don't want anybody to go home mad and injured ever. We just don't care.
Let me interrupt you just really quick, Germanicus. One thing I forgot to say to anybody watching, if you have any comments or questions or anything, please shoot them into the comment section. And our executive producer, Jermaine, is backstage and she will pop it up for us. And also, so let's get into a little bit more about more specifics. And
okay.
How does one, let's talk more a little bit, like this is more of an SCA audience,
right?
And how does a group who, if you don't have youth combat there, how does one get started with a youth combat group? You're talking about some of the equipment. I know that there's other things like helmets and as they grow older, there's more protection for things like kidneys and things like that. Is that true?
Yes. First things first, let's just say you're in a small group and maybe there's no youth combat there. Maybe there's a youth combat marshal, maybe, but maybe there's just no children who are fighting right then. The best way to get involved is, again, if there's a youth combat marshal, talk to them first. If you're the parent, okay? And they can kind of go over, this is how it works. Here's how to, does your son or daughter want to come look at some of the gear and all that type of thing?
Well, let's pretend that they don't have a youth combat marshal. That's the point.
I'm glad you asked that.
Okay.
The first thing to do, if you're in the SCA, you will know about the different organization websites. Okay. If you're not, you can go to sca.org, which we'll look at that in a minute. And you can look up your kingdom, find your group, where I live, and who are these guys? Oh, there's a contact right there. And you contact them and they will go into explaining everything, help you find somebody and so on. Let's just say there really is not a youth combat marshal anywhere near you. My email, I believe, is being posted on this event. So get a hold of me. I will help you. I love doing that with new people. I do it quite a bit, actually. Like, hey, do you know of anybody anywhere near me and so on? And I start digging and phone numbers and putting three-way phone calls together. And, we get things started. Now that will get the parent with the children connected. So now they've got a youth combat marshal somewhere. But let's talk about, this is my favorite topic. I love this one. Oh God, how much is this one going to cost? In my family, twin girls and a boy, right? So in our family, we did, holy cow, drill team, band with buying instruments, Boy Scouts, soccer teams, rodeo. We had to buy horses. So all of this cost a lot of money. That's the first thing that a parent is thinking is, how in the world am I going to afford this one? And are they really going to stick with it? That's the big question, because children are, short attention span sometimes. So what I do is I explain the only thing you need to bring to a practice and so on, just to kind of show up. Let's go test this. Let's go see if we're going to stick with it, is the normal protective gear for a boy or a girl you would see like in soccer and so on. And all of that is it's spelled out in the youth combat manual. It's very clear. But the normal personal protection, show up with that. If you're lucky and you've got a youth combat marshal there, they're going to have loaner gear. One person can use loaner gear a day under the new rules because of the COVID thing. But if you're the first one there and you ask, the gear is yours if it fits. One of the things I've suggested to marshals is if you'll go get yourself a can of neon pink spray paint and paint all of your youth combat loaner armor, there aren't too many kids that want to try to go home with bright pink armor. except for that one little girl we had down in Border Marsh one time, and she fell in love with the pink armor, and I did not have the heart to tell her, no, you need to leave that here. So she went home with bright pink armor, and she was on top of the world. But where does the stuff come from? Let's just say that your son or daughter is now really, I love this, Dad or Mom, I want to keep doing this. All right, you're going to start accumulating gear. Again, go look at the manual, which again, we'll get to that in a minute. But a typical thing is a field hockey helmet. Those have the grill. They do not have the two bars like baseball and football. Field hockey or lacrosse. I love garage sales and yard sales. I'm not sure what other parts of the country call them, but
one of our listeners is commenting, play it against sports.
Another good one.
And yard sales are great resources for finding some basic sporting equipment that works well for youth.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Sharma.
They are fantastic. You can also use, in many cases, depending on what it is, karate pads, things like that. Get with the youth combat marshal. They can walk you through that. But I have gone out on a Saturday morning and come back with my trunk, my Ford Escape loaded with gear for $20. Loaded, like way too much stuff. Man, the best thing about garage sales and yard sales, especially after the COVID lockdown we're coming out of, kids kept growing. So you've got a bunch of adult and parents out there who want to get rid of stuff in their garage because their son and daughters outgrew it. Now is the perfect time to, when the spring weather hits, keep an eye out for that.
Well, and that's the other thing is hand-me-down stuff is a huge thing as your kids grow into the program. There's other kids, hopefully, that are growing out of it that they can pass down the stuff. So do you have a list of a suggested list of loaner gear for a group?
Yeah. The first thing I would say, the top of the line, is get a couple different sizes of the lacrosse or field hockey helmets. Okay. And the marshals and the guys that work on armor will know this. You can't just show up with just a field hockey helmet. It has to be not modified, I guess, but you have to add something for the back of the neck protection. It's in the rules. It's very simple. There's nothing big to it. Foam rubber, a leather strip, whatever. Again, read the rules. It tells you exactly what to do, but it protects the back of the neck. So 3 or 4
one of
sizes.
Each size?
What's
one
that?
of each age group?
Yeah, I would say something like that. Depending on how active things are getting in your area, yeah, you may end up with 4 or 5 helmets. You never know. It really
that was one of the things that one of the things that is concerning for some groups and for a lot of parents is having loaner gear available.
Right.
So you've got a kid who's excited about this, and you go, we have this all over Artemisia. This is why I'm concerned about how do we get groups going?
Okay.
What's the bare minimum of trying to get somebody going? We may have somebody whose requirements and limitations for an adult to be a youth marshal. Yep, we will talk about that for just a second too. But we have, parents, the kids say they want to do it, but you can't ask the parents to go purchase stuff for their kids to try a sport.
Right.
So that's really where the loaner gear part comes in.
Yes.
So requirements to be a youth marshal, we were just talking about that. I know for one thing, to do anything with youth in the SCA, you have to pass an SCA background check.
Right.
You need to go and to the SCA.org website, and under the Seneschals tab in the library is the background check information. So that is bare minimum. We also have requirements for anybody working with youth in the SCA to have a 2 deep rule, in terms of there must be 2 unrelated adults with the children at all times. If they have to be, if you're at an event and you're in a huge room and you're off in one corner where everyone can see you, there still has to be somebody with the children, one-on-one with the children, who has a background check. The other thing that I think that, and Germanicus can probably correct me on this, there's a requirement to have the parents around for youth
Yes.
combat as well, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Depending on the age, again, 3 different age brackets. The youngest age, the parent must be right there. Okay. And the rules change a little bit as they get older. For the oldest bracket, as long as they're on site, great. What is not allowed, not for practice, not for an event, period, end of story, is number one, we're not a babysitting service. You can't drop them off and go have date night with your wife or husband. Love that movie, by the way. Anyway, you can't do that. We're not going to be responsible. I'm not about to take that risk. But if the parent or legal guardian or whatever, again, going by the rules for the oldest bracket, as long as they're at the site at the event, great. What cannot happen is the mom shows up, drops them off, and leaves. No.
Well, I want to codify that a little bit. It also depends on the site and the war. We have some wars that we've had in our kingdom where up until age 14, you have to be within earsight and eyesight of your child.
Right.
You cannot just let them run around the event anywhere where you are not at.
That's true.
So there are specific rules that need to be checked for any event. It could be different for a specific event, for a specific war. Make sure you check with your local group, with your local event rules before you do anything. The other thing is too, I talked a little bit about this on a Road to Retention show that I did with my friend Baroness Ramoot. So there's a consent thing that happens both directions. Make sure that the youth person is okay if you're going to maybe let them do something and you're going to go to a class. Have a one-on-one discussion with the youth person before you leave your children of any age anywhere. Please make sure that you discuss, I'm going to go take this class. Will they be here? They're going to be here for an hour. Is that okay with you? I'm over in that tent right there. That sort of thing is always good. Also, that you'll find at some of the bigger wars, the kids are often required to wear a wristband of some sort that has their encampment, a contact information, a phone number for the parent, and that sort of thing. So we do a pretty good job with that. Let's talk a little bit about. So you said helmets. What else? And there's what kind of body stuff?
To start a group, let's go back to that real quick. To get a group started, there's not one there. We can touch on that real quick. Then we can go to the actual what do I need type thing. If you are just starting the brand new youth combat marshal, maybe they have no clue, no loaner gear. They're just now getting started. They're so excited. Their son or daughter wants to get started. If they go build a couple of swords, going by the rules, they are so simple. Get a pool noodle, follow the instructions. It's nothing to it. A couple of swords, and then build a couple of little plywood shields. Again, by the rules, padded rims. If all they have is a sword and shield, and they don't even have a helmet, no, they can't fight. But the big guys can start training them how to stand. They can set up a practice dummy in your backyard. We do that all the time. Okay, I want you to throw a shot at his head. There, that's good. Do that. And they start training. And I promise you it happens every time. When their friends hear, and they will, what's going on and what they got to do and how sir something came to my house and showed me how to do this and such, okay, their friends are going to want to come watch and join, and it snowballs. And then all of a sudden, at the same time, the youth combat marshal may have found a source for karate armor in a garage sale, a field hockey helmet, and it just, again, it snowballs. I keep saying that over and over. It's a slow growth, almost like a stock market item that's about to go vertical. We've seen that so many times.
Well,
Dead quiet to unbelievable.
Yeah, excuse me. One of the things that I was going to say is you touched on it a little bit. So I've been to a couple of events over in Ontier that have youth combat, and one of the very most fun thing that I've seen was them actually having the youth combatants heralded in
Oh, I
to the
love that.
battle, and heralded into
Yes.
court in their armor, like they're the big guys, you know, like it was a crown tournament or something. The kids were just beside themselves, you know. And I've also done that as a youth minister. One of the things that I do, and I'm sure that it irritates some people, I hope not, but one of the things that I always do is I try to do some way to get those couple of minutes in court for the kids.
Absolutely.
I
That-
try to, you know,
yeah.
I don't always try to do competitions, but if I'm going to do one, I'm going to do a populist choice and a, you know, a winner of this or whatever. I've done
Mhm.
youth Olympics and things a few times. So, but giving them their minute in court for winning their tournament that day too
Mhm.
is a pretty cool thing. And just like the adults, anytime you can make that dream for a child happen, it's a good day, you know. We also, at one of our events, we had their Majesty's Meridies have a youth combat champion that stands in court with them.
Absolutely.
I love that idea. I love that idea. um I lost what I was going to say. I don't
We've seen that down here in Osteor for years. When they finally accepted youth combat was pretty darn good. We have a youth combat champion at the same town, not the crown tourney, but the coronation. When all the champions are chosen, absolutely youth combat armored, youth combat rapier. But you're right about it's amazing when you see maybe a little boy or a little girl, they've won some tournament, some event during the day, and that evening in court, maybe there's 200, 300 people dressed beautifully. I
yeah.
mean, it's court, you know, they're here to show and tell. And all of a sudden I get up there, or one of the other marshals gets up there, and you call that young person up there for their award. They won. And I've seen this little boy shy and terrified, but he went up there with a knight taking his hand, not his father, not his mother, but a knight. And he presented, Your Majesty, this is your champion for the day, blah, blah, blah. And that little guy went up there. The king and queen came down off their throne, kneeled down, talked to him, gave him the award. And you should have seen him. His chest was about 14 inches bigger in diameter
Right.
when he came back down the aisle. And he was never shy again, not
Yeah.
once. It changed him, totally changed him.
That's amazing. That's
I've seen it hundreds
what
of
we would really
times.
like. So I have a question for you. Basically it what I'm hearing is it boils down to equipment and everything else. Please go read the rules because it's too detailed for us to blab out on the show. So I got that. So let's talk one other thing then. I have a friend, Sir Audi Aptam, here in Artemisia, who has done some youth combat. He's got 4 little boys. He's actually a 2nd gen player.
Wow.
And so his dad is a knight and a count. And so anyway, those kids are growing up in it. But he had some questions about youth combat that I'd like to pass on. And one of the questions is there seems to be, at least in the way we're doing it in Artemisia, and maybe that's the problem, but there seems to be quite a disparity between the way we teach youth combat and then the way actual fighting goes. In terms of, yes, we have like his idea is, in terms of youth combat, we have the youngest kids and the middle kids and the oldest kids, but they're really not like one step below fighting in armor by the time they grow out of the program the way we had, or the way he had seen it being designed. Do you find that, or do you guys do it more in terms of we really are grooming you to actually be okay?
I've seen a lot of not a lot, but some kids will I hate that word, kids, boys and girls, young heroes. They will decide maybe when they're 16 and they're a girl and she's beautiful and a princess, this is silly, I'm not going to fight anymore. All right, great. Others decide I want to stay with it and keep going. But the 14 to 17-year-olds, they are fighting with rattan swords. They're fighting with the same stuff as the big boys, but they are only fighting their age group. Okay. So they're not ramped up. They're not knocking guys over like we do in the big field and so on. But everywhere I've seen, and I can't speak for those two kingdoms. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. But typically, Ansteora is one, Glenabin's another, Meridias is another. I have seen 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds. Boy, the knights are over there watching them on the sidelines, and they're looking at each other going, I don't want to fight that kid. It's unbelievable.
So it is. So you guys really are more grooming them to actually go into the adult fighting package.
When they turn 14 and they get into rattan and real armor, and it's starting to get really fun now, really big boy stuff. Okay. We are really teaching them to prepare them for when they turn 18 and age up, and now they're on a big field like Gulf Wars or a tournament going up against a guy who's been fighting for 10 years. We want them to have a chance and not get hurt.
So in Ansteora, is it 18 before you can enter the armored program?
Yes. The only difference, and this is worldwide, in the rules, you can actually be authorized by the Earl Marshal for your kingdom, period, to fight as an adult with the parents' approval, etc., etc., etc. My son did that.
At 16, right?
16, I'm sorry.
At 16,
16 or 17, but as early as 16. So my son did that.
But they're not authorized for things like melees or anything like that.
Oh, yes, they are.
Oh, really?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
If they are authorized, and by the way, it's not a simple test. They are going to be tested because,
well,
again,
Sir oldest now has done that. He's actually fighting.
Think of the legal issues. We have to make absolutely sure that they're safe. They can really defend themselves. They can fight. They know what they're doing. And typically it'll be the kids that, like you said, have grown up in youth combat. They've grown up in the SCA and they know what they're doing. Again, my son did that. 16, he was authorized right after his birthday, or right after his 16th birthday, authorized. And at the Steppes Warlord, fought several adults just to show everybody, I kind of know what I'm doing. He beat every one of them. 2 were knights. And the next day, he was the last man standing in a melee, 2 of them. So and then he went to Penzik. And we see it all the time.
So in Artemisia, I probably misspeaking, but I think there's a difference between authorized for fighting at like tournaments and authorized for fighting like melees.
Let's talk
maybe
about
that's
that.
only in rapier. I don't know.
Here's the thing.
I'm a non-fighter, obviously.
Right.
So,
we forgive you. We need you guys.
Thank you. I'm a terrible consort.
This part is really important because you touched on this earlier, but I want to make sure everybody understands, especially if you're kind of looking at this brand new, don't know what's going on. Okay. The SCA.org, where the manual is, that goes into youth combat, that is the worldwide manual. And just like the comment section on the screen, it came from ideas and years of, well, that didn't work. Let's try this. What do you guys think about that? And my 2 predecessors did a magnificent job, put it together, and gave us a manual. So when I walked in, it's like, there it is. I can do this. But each kingdom, the best way to put this was the pirate movie. We like to think of them more like guidelines than rules. Remember that from classic line. Well, the rule book is there. It is. This is how it works. But each kingdom can modify the rules if they deem it necessary for their own needs, their own comfort level. As an example, in Ansteora, when I was the Earl Marshal, new book came out. We decided, because we were doing so many mixed age melees, that the thrown weapons, even though they're foam rubber, whatever, we're going, a 17-year-old throwing at a 6-year-old, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that.
Right.
And after lots of testing and all that, the 6-year-olds complain the most. They love it. So, okay, fine. They've gotten rid of that rule, and they can throw stuff at the big kids and vice versa. That's just that one change. but each kingdom can modify those rules to their own personal preference a little bit. We just give them the guidelines.
Okay. Awesome. So, in terms of, we talked a little bit about this youth. What are the age brackets? How young is it that they can start?
6 years old.
6 years old. So it's
Right.
6 to 10.
I think it's 9. I invariably forget. That's why I keep my book handy.
That's why you keep saying go to it. So let's show them that. You actually had that. You were going to show that.
Yeah,
how
let's
to
do
find
that real quick. Let me go pull up my screen, and I'll share the screen on the SCA. Okay. So that is the SCA main website for the whole world. And in the far upper right-hand corner, it says Document Library. Okay. Can everybody see that all right, I hope?
Yep, you're good.
Good. So if you click on Document Library, just start scrolling down, and way down here under, Martial and Combat. Look at the last link right before Financial. That's Youth Armored and Youth Rapier Combat.
Okay.
When you click on it, the very first link, the Society Youth Martial Handbook, there it is. And that will pop right up. And I keep a paper copy. I keep a digital copy on a tablet or whatever. But I also, if you go to the far upper right-hand corner, it's just a PDF file. And you can download that to your phone. So if you're at an event, you don't have to have a big manual, or you need to refer to the age brackets, like here I am, totally blank. But you can download that right to your phone, and it sure comes in handy sometimes. But that's where all of that is. So.
Okay. And so then, just in general terms, the youngest kids are basically, they have maybe a helmet on and the sword and the shield, and
very minimal.
But as they go older, because they're hitting harder or whatever, that's when they get more closer to actual armor. What are they wearing on their body at that point?
The little guys, they have to have like a kidney protection, a padded belt. The martial arts
belt
armor,
that covers the back, where their kidneys
lower
are.
Back.
Okay.
And then you've got the field hockey helmet, that, and I say field hockey and all that. Some parents will actually find on eBay or something a metal helmet. Okay, good for you. But before you start spending money, let's make sure they're going to stick with it, But again, in the rules.
Plus, anybody who has kids, I mean, I've never had them wear out a pair of shoes, So they just boom. So.
But and then you do a couple of extra things: elbow pads, knee pads, personal protection. It's real simple, very, very simple. Okay. And then the next category up, all right, 10 to 13, I think it is. All right. Yeah, they're starting to hit a little harder now. In the little guys, to give you an idea, it's what they call directed touch. It's not swinging from Kalamazoo. You're just putting your shot, you're touching somebody where, okay, I touched you on the arm, your arm doesn't work anymore. That's a directed touch, real simple. And again, it's a pool noodle sword. So, the next category, they're actually starting to swing. But again, it's very light, but they are swinging for the middle age group, right? Now, the older kids from 14 to 17, they're starting to hit. And they've got rattan swords or the other types of core that we can build and so on. But yeah, they are starting to actually duke it out and bang into each other. It gets pretty exciting for them. They love it. And again, the armor goes up each time you age up to a different bracket because you're hitting harder. More stuff needs to be covered, better padding, whatever. I've been building armor for a very long time. If anybody wants the manual on how to build hardened leather armor, I wrote the article for Border March years ago. Send me an email. I'm happy to send it to you. We create hardened leather armor using just water. We don't boil it. And polyurethane coating. You can paint it, make it look just like metal, and it's hard as a brick. and really inexpensive. But the patterns are all over the internet for those of the kids that get into older and really want to look cool. Okay. If you look up on Google, get on Google, look up SCA armor patterns. You're not going to believe what you can download. It's oodles of patterns, all free, tons of the stuff. And one of the things I use, it works great. Don't buy leather and try to make a pattern. No, go to Walmart early in the morning when they're unloading boxes. Go get your bunch of corrugated cardboard. It's the same thickness and whatever consistency of leather. And you can make patterns all day long and use those brass office brads to put the pattern together. Does that look about right? Oh, my arm doesn't move. Throw it away and recycle. Go get some more cardboard. That's free. We've been doing that for years, and we show parents how to do that. And I started my original ideas, me and one other guy, when we decided to try this for us and for Connor, my son, and his friends, was Conan Savage Sword of Conan comic books, because we had no patterns. And we're trying to figure out, how do we make this stuff? So we're looking at comic books at the comic store. Hey, look at that guy fighting Conan. He's got great armor. Let's go see if we can copy that. And that's how we started.
Okay. I like that idea with the cardboard. That's a really good idea and a cheap way to do it.
Dirt cheap.
Yeah. Okay. So we are almost about at an hour. So I am going to go through a couple of business things before I ask you for your final thoughts.
Okay.
And your shout out, because we were going to give a shout out to some people. So let me do some business for Kal-bardr's Corner first. Okay, so coming up soon on Kal-bardr's Corner, we have on our next Road to Retention series by Baroness Ramoot, we have Lady Safia, who's going to join on March 6th. Next on Coffee with Cal, he is going to come join you from Gulf War Special. At this point, we do not have a date or a guest. If you're interested in being that, please contact Cal. Next on our show here, we'll be here next month on Monday, March 28th, where we will talk to Dame Catherine Ainsdale of Lancashire. She is the Kingdom Youth Minister in Caid, and we're going to talk about youth ministry next time. So my final thoughts basically are youth combat, from what I'm understanding, is a great draw. The kids love it, and it's not as expensive as you think it is. Finding a fighter or someone who's interested in being a marshal is a good thing, but involving the rest of the fighters, I love that idea. Some of the best things I've seen in the SCA with kids are when the big guys are out there with the kids too.
It's magic.
It's magic. The youth activities where we have, stick horse jousting. When you get the knights out there doing the stick horse jousting, that is hysterical fun. So I love it when we get everybody together and it's not just the youth stuff is off in a corner. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
You've got some final thoughts and a shout out?
Final thought is, again, I have seen, after being around this stuff for 20 years in youth combat as a marshal, what I've seen so many times is the kids, little kids, they turn into adults. Some of the ones that I've watched grow up are now parents, and they're raising their own little youth combat menaces for the future. But I have seen things like, as an example, Gulf Wars, this one beautiful little girl, about 10 years old, showed up, giving an idea of the effect this can have, the confidence that can have. And she showed up looking very timid with her mother. Big mob of kids were having battles, melees going on. They're having a ball, screaming, shouting, absolute chaos. And her mother comes over and says, she's never done anything like this. Do you think maybe you could introduce her? I went, absolutely. Come on. So I took her over, introduced her. And by the way, she had a pink heart-shaped shield with fuzzies all around the rim. It was adorable. So she gets out there looking very timid. And it took about 10 minutes. I put her in the back, introduced her to her general on her side. And the next thing you know, she is out there yelling, screaming, having a great time. And her mother came over with the funniest look on her face. This still gets to me to tell you the story. She said, I've never seen her like this before. I went, what do you mean? Is she okay? No, you don't understand. She has Asperger's syndrome. I can't even take her to Walmart because the overload of the sounds, the noise, she can't take it. And yet look at her right now. And I looked and she's screaming and yelling and waving her sword right in the mob of a bunch of kids. And after that, from what I heard, she never looked back. And she's gone on to major success. Another young man, also medical challenges, is now going on to design computer games for a big operation. And one became a veterinarian, on and on and on. And I've had such joy watching these ferocious little ankle biters turn into very successful adults. It's the best thing ever.
I love that. Thank you so much. And you have a shout out?
I do. Top of the list, very quickly, the lady that talked me in or threatened me into this in the first place and intimidated my son, Donald. When you see this, I love you. You are the best. Otherwise, I still wouldn't be doing this. The other two ladies, Katrin and Kara from up in the Northeast, they've been through the ringer at times. They keep building youth combat. Fergus up there in the Northeast as well. Guys, I love you. You are the best of the best. I met them all at Pensick War. And what they do for those kids is pure magic. And that's it.
Awesome. My shout out today, I am going to defer and shout out to my very good friend, my executive producer, Germain de Leonçant. Everybody calls her Germaine. She, thank you. She does so much for me and is always there for me anytime I ask her. And I'm so thrilled that she agreed to do this for me on the back end of this show. Okay, so a couple other things. If you want to support Kal-bardr's Corner, please go out. You can be a Patreon. You can be on our grand wall of patrons, KK Productions, patreon.com. You can also go out and find stickers on Redbubble. Look for KK Productions, and there are stickers for all the shows that are running on Kal-bardr's Corner here on YouTube or Facebook Live, but the shows are all streamed after the fact, so please go out and do that. I think we showed it, but if you need to contact me, there you go. There is my email, Izzy, but it is isgerth@gmail.com. Again, if you have any suggestions, comments, questions on the show, on youth combat, please contact Lord Germanicus at youthcombat@sca.org. We are, again, gathering information through this show. We are going to try to codify all that together and disseminate it across the known world. And I am so looking forward to it. Thank you for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you next month as we all take a look inside youth activities together. Thank you. Good night. Thanks, Lord Germanicus.
You're welcome.